I think ultimately the important thing, and was the revelation for me when writing this book. This is the thing that really blew my mind. Is I had heard, especially again as like a talk radio conservative, that it was all about individuality, right? It was all about the freedom of the individual, and that's what protected us from the government. But actually, what I found out is that that's not what anyone, even the founders, believe. That ultimately the only thing that controls the power of government is opposing social spheres, other social forces that actually have a significant influence in our lives. And ultimately, that's what the founding fathers said. John Adams told us that the Constitution was written for a moral and religious people, and that it didn't work for anybody else. You needed to have virtuous communities that took care of each other and relied on each other and didn't rely on the government and didn't hand that power to the government. The checks and the balances of the Constitution only work if we are people animated by a tradition of governance inside virtuous communities.
But what has happened, Aaron, what's happened is the government has actively worked against that.
Yes.
Because that undermines their power.
Yes. Absolutely. No, this is, again, something I found in a lot of political theory that I lay out in the book, is that this is something we see from governments attempting to centralize over and over again. They relentlessly attack communities. They relentlessly attack churches. They relentlessly attack families. This is a pattern over time that we can see throughout history, the need to break down those opposing social spheres. So I think you're right. It's not just that people became less virtuous or that they weren't working as hard. It's that the government actively worked against those things. It actively undermined those things. And we worked in tandem. Yes, we handed those powers over to the government, but the government was there enthusiastically to take them and to set up programs to make sure to consolidate the power that was created when they took over functions that were once part of those opposing spheres in our communities.
Yeah, that's what we've seen, isn't it? That's exactly what has happened over the history of this country. 250 years, the thing has held itself together, but how long did Rome last?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at. If you look at the Roman Republic, obviously it lasts until Caesar, and then the Western Empire falls in 500, but the Byzantine Empire continues on until the 1400s.
So if the power centered in Rome with the Senate, 300 years? That's a pretty good run, wasn't it? Because here we are at 250, and we're not. I don't see this lasting much longer. I really don't.
Yeah, again, I think that there's a natural life cycle to civilizations and regimes, right? No matter how great they are, no matter how well they're put together, nothing is eternal. And, every ancient political thinker from Aristotle forward recognized this, that constitutions and governments would change because the people they ruled changed, that none of this was static. That's tough to us to hear because we have thoroughly invested in a particular system. And ultimately, I think we should honor that heritage. We should recognize the great things that came before us, the amazing things that our ancestors did, and the debt that we owe them. And we should carry that into the future as part of our identity. But we are certainly looking at a shift. I think you're right that ultimately we will see a significant shift in the way that America is run. Honestly, I'm not sure that America as one cohesive political entity is even part of the long-term future.
No. Join us this week on Starting Strength Radio. We have, as our guest this week, Aaron McIntyre, who has written a very, very important book called The Total State. It discusses what is going on right now, and if you're at all concerned about it, you're going to find our conversation with Mr. McIntyre very, very interesting. This week on Starting Strength Radio.